We'll call this meeting to order of the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission. I'm Kurt Holbert. I'm the chairman of the commission. We would ask at this time you'd silence your cell phones for the rest of the meeting. If you need to make a call, just step out or take a call. At this time, I'm going to call on Commissioner James Stroud to lead us in our invocation and our pledge.
Father, we love you, and we just thank you so much for the day. What a pretty day, Lord. Thank you so much. Lord, I want you to pay some attention to us, please, today. We have some decisions to make that are really important. Father, I want to ask that you would please just give us some ways of figuring things out. Bless this meeting and bless what we try to do. Lord, I ask right now that you just let us be mindful of what we're trying to do and give us courage and give us knowledge. And we ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have a few special guests in the room this morning. Miss Laura and Mr. Clarence Dyes from Tennessee Fur Harvesters Association. We got a commissioner watching this morning that couldn't be with us today, Commissioner Hank Wright. And Hank, we're all waving at you. You just can't see us. Mike Butler, Tennessee Wildlife Federation. Catherine Miller and Allison Garton. They're interns for our wildlife division. Where are y'all? There, it's got to be y'all. The only two people we don't recognize. So, we got somebody named Tommy's wife. That'd be. Now, Tammy Woods is sitting back there in the back. We're glad to have her with us this morning. And I think that's it, unless I missed somebody. Danette, will you call the roll, please?
Dennis Gardner.
Here.
Jimmy Granbery.
Here.
Steve Jones.
Here.
Connie King.
Here.
Jim Ripley.
Here.
Tony Sanders.
Here.
James Stroud.
Here.
Kent Woods.
Here.
Tommy Woods.
Here.
Hank Wright. Angie Box.
Here.
Brian McLerran.
Here.
Kurt Holbert.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. You've got your minutes in front of you or on your iPad, and if you've had time to look over them, and they need a motion for approval of those. There's a second. All right, I have a motion and a second. Who made that motion? I'm supposed to let her know, and I forgot. Commissioner Gardner, and second by Sanders. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Director Carter, any announcements this morning? You've been awful quiet this week. Jet lag. All right. We'll move right in on business. I'm going to call on Chuck Yoest, our CWD coordinator. And I'm going to handle this similar to the last meeting. Chuck, you can have your slides ready if somebody's got a question or wants to ask something. But I'm going to, if somebody was not here yesterday and got any questions, or feel free to ask them, and we can go through it all, but there's no need unless somebody's got a question. It's Proclamation 1903, so I'll let you present that, not the program.
Yeah, so I intended to share a much abbreviated presentation than yesterday.
That's fine.
Is that okay? Thank you. All right, so as he pointed out, this is a recommendation for the passage of 1903, which is the big game hunting proclamation. However, it only addresses chronic wasting disease hunting regulations because that is the only change that is recommended. We know we have a significant CWD problem in Tennessee, and based on the fact that we have, or that we're finding so many diseased deer and that the distribution is large, This is an issue that cannot be managed best without being in close partnership with hunters, and they are a primary stakeholder to help us best manage the disease. And the goal of these hunting regulations are to empower those hunters to harvest more deer while targeting high-risk deer. So in short, we need to harvest more deer, whether it's bucks or does. Actually, we need to increase the harvest of both. So put simply, that's the objective. In summary, the recommended changes first. Well, let me back up just a minute and be clear that some of the things that we are not recommending change is that we suggest that the dates for these hunting regulations be consistent with the statewide dates. In other words, these dates or seasons would mirror the statewide dates for simplicity's sake. And then we're suggesting that the statewide antler deer limit remain at 2. However, this recommendation would allow the harvest of additional antlered deer. So with that, the recommended changes are that we establish unit CWD that would comprise of 8 counties, the high-risk and positive CWD counties. The second recommendation is during the August 3-day hunt that hunters be allowed to use guns and muzzleloaders in addition to archery, and that select public lands be open. And the rationale for this is to increase the harvest of bucks, increase the harvest of older age class bucks. Moving on to the January 5th hunt, the change would be to allow the harvest of antler deer in addition to antlerless deer. Currently, you can only harvest antlerless. And this hunt, the intent of this is obvious, to increase the number of bucks harvested. Moving on, this would apply to the entire 2019-2020 season, would be allow hunters to earn 2 additional bucks that they could harvest. They'd earn these individually by harvesting 2 antlerless deer from the CWD unit, and they're required to submit those deer for testing. And they would also be entitled to replacement bucks if they qualify. A replacement buck would be eligible when a hunter harvests a positive antler deer from unit CWD and provides the agency proof that it tested positive, and then the agency would issue them the opportunity for a replacement buck. Both of these have the potential of increasing the buck harvest, and again would result in an overall increase in harvest. And they're also incentive for testing, which better informs our decision making moving forward. And then there's also a nice customer service piece embedded with both of these opportunities. And next would be mandatory physical check stations on open weekends of muzzleloader and the gun seasons. And these mandatory check stations that we had last deer season resulted in a lot of the great information that we now have to make decisions on. However, the information's incomplete because we only did this at the end of the year last year, and there's more work to be done to know exactly where the distribution is of chronic wasting disease in the state. So it's an important opportunity for us to learn more, and so that the agency and the commission both are better informed. I should have jumped to this sooner. However, this is what the unit would look like in purple in Southwest Tennessee, unit CWD. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions and recommend passage of Proclamation 1903.
Thank you, Chuck. I'm gonna get a motion. I'm gonna go ahead and get the motion on the table before I start with discussion. It'll be after we get the motion on the table or discussion either.
So is this an emotion on 1903 or 1903 as amended in committee? 1903 as amended?
Once we get it on the floor.
That's already amended.
No, but it can be.
All right, Chairman? Correct. Chairman, the Wildlife Committee met yesterday and voted to pass Resolution 1903 as amended.
Okay, do I hear a second? Second. All right, I have a motion and a second. And now I'll ask for discussion. Chuck, I've got one question, if you'll pull that, probably the first slide up. I can't remember which one. Okay. On the, and I know as the motion's amended right now, it doesn't include this, but I know it's a recommendation. On the August hunt, the gun, muzzleloader, and archery, and the reason was obviously more, to get more samples and testing. My question is, if it's so important, why aren't we doing mandatory check-in on those 3 days?
Yeah, that is a good question. And we debated that a whole lot to decide what was best, because there's quite a bit of trade-offs with that. But the main things are that we anticipate that a lot of those deer that are harvested are going to ultimately go to taxidermists, and they will be sampled through that way. So we're working with those taxidermists to try to get the samples that way. But there was also concerns about, because of the heat, the potential of the meat wasting, or somehow the taxidermy potential being compromised by us slowing the hunters down, requiring them to go to a mandatory physical check station, and whatever amount of time that would cost them, and the concerns about the animal.
I just think that's something, because a lot of these hunters are going to take their deer home and put them in a freezer. I know a lot of the taxidermists would rather them do that, especially if they're velvet. So if getting these early samples is that important, and that's what I heard yesterday, if that were to, even if it's archery only, it seems like it would be a feasible.
Another thing I'll add to that is the sampling drop-off locations that we had last year. We're going to have those again, and those will be available for hunters. And in the case where a hunter can't have it sampled through any of those other means, we're making arrangements for biologists to be available in each county to be contacted so that they could provide that service of sampling. But so that was what we settled on, as opposed to mandatory check stations that weekend. However, if that's the commission's desire, we can accommodate that.
Just a question.
Mr.
Definitely not
Chairman,
direction, so.
I apologize, I wasn't here yesterday. Can we clarify what the,
Yeah, I'll state the.
okay.
Okay. The motion is it's Proclamation 1903 as amended. The amendment takes away, or on the August 3rd hunt in the CWD zone, is the recommendation was gun, muzzleloader, and archery. The motion, as it is on the floor right now, is archery only. It was amended to say archery only,
So the motion is archery only.
as it is right now.
Okay. Mr. Chairman,
I had another question, but I forgot what it was.
I'd like to make a motion for an amendment. Can we do that?
Connie's asked to be recognized first, and
Oh,
James.
I'm sorry.
If I can get done with my questions, but I appreciate it. Wow. Sorry. I forgot it when I got interrupted. Okay, on the January 5th hunt, is this going to include the public lands?
Not currently, no, sir.
Okay. What was the agencies? I know you're including it on the Velvet Hunt.
Right. The reason we decided to not include it on the January 5th hunt is the WMAs in this area have a lot of small game hunting activities during this time, and just trying to be sensitive to that stakeholder group and not have conflicts there.
Okay. Hold on, I got Commissioner King first.
We keep talking about the August 3rd hunt. It's an August 3-day hunt, which is not consistent with the 3 dates. And then it's a January 5-day hunt, which is not necessarily the 5th. It's actually starting on the 6th, just so
Yeah.
we don't get the dates screwed up according to the dates, to the calendar.
Commissioner King, I'm done.
Okay. I'm gonna see if I can make this as clear as in my head, if I can get it out there. I would like to propose an amendment that, for those 3 days, the archery only 3 days, that we, change it to, for, the gun, muzzleloader, and archery for the 2 counties, Hardeman and Fayette, only. And the other 6 counties that you're hearing from, because they feel like we're being too aggressive in their counties, that leave it at archery only for those 6 counties. Gun, muzzleloader, and archery within the 2, Hardeman and Fayette. And in addition to that, let's open gun season a week early in muzzleloader season, which would be, if I'm looking at the calendar right, the 16th. Is that correct? The 16th, to gun season. So we have muzzleloaders can hunt a week with just muzzleloader, and then in the 8 counties, all 8 counties, open up gun season 1 week early. That's before the rut, all right? That's still early. It would, to me, be a good compromise, because Angie and Kurt and those that are down in that area having to talk to the hunters and deal with the hunters that feel like, for their counties, why be so aggressive in their counties? We still have plenty of time. You have farmers that are doing depredation permits there, right, during that time? So we'll have, seems like to me we'd have plenty of sampling. But that's my proposal. Do I need to clarify something?
Yes, but I need to clarify the dates
Okay,
with Chuck. When does muzzleloader open?
looks like the 9th.
Everybody should have a color copy of the slide that shows the statewide seasons as they currently exist.
It's on the screen now as well.
You okay?
So wasn't
this
I right
is-
on the 16th is when I would propose we open up gun season to all 8 counties early, a week early? Commissioner Ripley, didn't you mention that
Yes.
yesterday too?
Actually, my thought was that, well, I'll just tell you what my thought was in general terms, and that was from October the 28th, which
Hey,
is
Jim,
part of
hold
the,
on. Let me do it. Let me get a second, then.
oh, okay,
All right.
okay. She'd asked me.
I know that, and I'm trying to keep in order, but then I'm going to you to let you say that. Do I hear a second on the amendment? I have a second from Commissioner Granbery. Commissioner Ripley.
Well, first of all, I think that what Commissioner King is suggesting has a lot of merit with regard to her interest in opening the gun season earlier. As I think we discussed yesterday, we have been told, and I believe, that harvesting bucks is of primary importance. And I think we all know that in November particularly, that bucks are more active, more likely to be encountered, more likely to be killed, and the more lethal the weapon utilized, i.e. rifle, the more likely we are to successfully harvest bucks. So I believe that what Commissioner King has suggested is a very, very good start with applying the rifle season early within the rut period to maximize the harvest of bucks. My suggestion yesterday went a little further than that, and it proposed that between the period of October the 28th, which is in the current archery season, and November the 10th, that we add muzzle loaders. That would give, would provide 2 full weeks of muzzle loader for the period of October 28th through November the 10th. November the 11th, my proposal was we would open the rifle season, and hunters could take deer with rifles, muzzleloaders, or archery throughout the remainder of the season. It's my belief that will maximize the harvest of bucks, but I commend Commissioner King because I think that what she's suggesting gets us much closer to where we need to be. I will say this, that with regard to the August hunt, again, we've been told that the agency would like to see all 3 weapons to be available to the hunters, and I would support that. At the very least, I would fall back to a position of saying that in the entire zone, that we would allow both archery and muzzleloader during that period of time.
Thank you, Commissioner Ripley. State those dates, because I'm going to ask Commissioner
May I interrupt just for a second? I was aware of the dates, and I'm going to change this calendar to what he's proposing, so I think this will help.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Commissioner Sanders, would you withdraw your second if she wants to reconsider her motion to include the dates, these dates?
I didn't make a second.
I'll withdraw it.
Sorry.
Okay, so then I will restate my proposal. The first part being the same, that we let the 2 counties, Hardeman and Fayette, use all 3 during the early season, the 6 counties, archery only, and then the dates that Commissioner Ripley proposed for the rest of it to be included in my proposal. Yeah, it's shown on the screen now.
All right, do I hear a second?
Let me,
I got Steve first. Okay, I'm opening it up for discussion. I'm going to repeat the motion. The motion on the floor, or the amendment on the floor, is to open Hardeman and Fayette counties to all 3 weapon types on August 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Then in the whole CWD zone, to open up muzzleloader on October the 28th
Okay.
through November the 10th. And then gun season would open on November the 11th. That's the current amendment on the floor.
And that was all 8 counties?
It's all 8 counties. It's the whole CWD zone on the gun. Are there questions or discussion? Commissioner Stroud.
Commissioner King, did you say, or are we looking at this in motion here, that the 3-day season there is everything in the 2 counties, and then every place else is archery only?
Correct.
Can I just say this about the 3-day season? We had 3 biologists, scientists, we had the agency telling us that we need data. We all know that there was only 8 deer killed last year, and we had that argument yesterday. But I think Dr. Dan said something yesterday that was really important. He said that this whole thing is, we're at the back end of this curve. We don't have the luxury of thinking about what we're going to do in the future. It's already on us. It's already past us. So I think that we have one shot at this thing, and that's science. And as much data as we can give these people to deal with this thing, it serves all kinds of purposes. First of all, it allows us to look at the future seasons that we're going to be looking at as far as hunting. Secondly, I think it's important that we gather enough data, and this is my point, Connie, that we gather enough data, not only where we already know that it's goofed up, and that we know that it's potentially dangerous as far as the disease getting out there around us. So, to me, the mission, and we talked about it yesterday, is to find out as much as we can about the CWD unit. So, I would suggest, or I would love for you to consider, or us to consider, that in your amendment that we allow the muzzleloader and bow in the CWD unit for those 3 days, because we need to kill some deer so they can have some deer to research, and we need to get it early enough, and that's our chance. And if you would look at that, I'm not making a motion,
I can't take a motion right now.
I'll respond.
so it's a discussion. But anyway, you know, we just don't, look, we don't have enough deer coming to these people to figure it out.
Can I res-
And I think, and I'll be done, but I think that, you know, we're, in order to keep this thing from spreading, and we already know what's going on in the middle of this thing, we need to find out just how bad it's gotten on the outside. So I think it's more important, as far as research, to hunt these deer on the periphery, and allow them to test this stuff, and see just how bad it's getting. That's all. Thank you.
May I respond to that? My thoughts on that? I would love to hear if they wouldn't mind saying, like Dr. Groves, what, would that give you enough data? The amendment we have up now, do you think that would give enough data? Is that the primary reason for that 3-day hunt, to get data, or just to get rid of, just to kill deer? Just to thin the herd?
I need to ask a clarifying question, if that's okay. And you're asking about allowing a firearm during the August hunt in only the 2 counties?
Correct.
Hardeman and Fayette?
Correct.
Okay, the primary need is to increase the deer harvest.
Right.
But it's also very important at the same time that we get our hands on samples as quickly as possible. So I think that point's been driven home. My caution on not treating Madison the same way is Madison is CWD positive. And throughout the CWD response, throughout the emergency rule development, the permanent rule, everything we've done has been based on 2 classifications, or I'd say 3: high risk, positive, and then the areas of the state that haven't been impacted. And what you're considering now is not treating. You're considering treating one of the positive counties differently, and that's inconsistent with all those things.
Any more discussion?
Mr. Chairman, so you've got a motion on the floor and an amendment.
I've got a motion and a second for an amendment.
Commissioner Stroud, if you're willing to make your comments an amendment to the amendment, I'll second it.
I can't take an amendment to the amendment.
One amendment? Okay.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to go over a few thoughts that I've had. I've been grinding over this since yesterday's discussion. I understand fully trying to balance the data gathering, reducing the herd size, and hunter, sportsmen, sportswomen satisfaction. The science says that we should use every means possible to try to reduce the herd size, get as much sampling as we can. And also in disease management, which was discussed quite a bit yesterday, when you attack a disease, you don't. We're not in prevention. We're in containment now, and you don't contain from the inside out. You contain from the outside in. So so to reduce that, any portion of this, to just the affected, or to 2 counties, seems to me not a good way to go. I think everybody agrees that we got to act with urgency. So being passive on a portion of it doesn't make any sense to me either. Public meeting in Fayette County, this was presented as a concept, well-received, no negative comments whatsoever. Follow-up survey to that meeting, again, no negative comments. Now, this was, that was in Fayette County, and granted that maybe some of the external counties didn't attend, it was well-attended. I do not know what the ratio was for who attended from what county and what kind of representation they may or may not had. But all of those things to me say that a compromise on the 3-day season, similar to what Commissioner Stroud is saying, to do muzzleloader, and I think it still needs to be all 8 counties, and that's kind of where I've ended up. I've gone back and forth, and I've tried to make it all make sense, but to me, this is the most sound way to try to define the perimeter of the CWD zone, which has by far not been defined. We found it too late last year. But we've got to define that perimeter, and then we can tailor, more specifically tailor our harvest and our quotas and things like that. But until we get that perimeter defined, I think we got to do everything we can. Thanks.
Commissioner Sanders.
Chuck, if I'm not mistaken, or I don't remember whose presentation, we're about 9% positive, right? At this point, with samples to positives. 8 or 9, 8
Yeah.
point something.
Yeah, it's 8 to
Well,
10,
we concede
depending on
8 point
what
something,
county you're
okay.
in, yes, sir.
So in theory, if, based on the statistics we have now, 90% of the deer we're going to harvest are not going to be CWD positive, right?
I'm not going to do math standing right here. There's a lot to consider. Dan, is this something you could help me with, Dr. Grove? Come on.
And I'm doing back of the envelope math here, Dr. Grove.
Keep in mind, Dan Grove with UT Extension, for the record. Keep in mind what we discussed yesterday. That's a diluted prevalence because that's the samples from the whole county and not what's actually going on inside of that much larger kind of area on the map that we showed you. What's actually probably going on inside that area is a much higher prevalence, and so it's probably more like 1 to 2. Or 1 to 3 is what your ratio is. You're looking at a 30 to 50% prevalence within that hardest hit area, and then that as you go further out from that, it's going to be less and less. So it all depends on where you're actually looking at the number of animals.
And I'm just kind of addressing, looking at the 2 counties, because it'd still be a diluted number if we're looking at the 2 counties as a whole, right?
And unfortunately, we don't have the locations of the non-detects. And so I can't tell you where those animals were harvested and tell you that you've got a 1 in 10 chance of harvesting a positive because it depends on where you are in the county, what your likelihood of harvesting the positive animal is going to be.
Okay, so let me just make sure then. The number of positives in those 2 counties that Commissioner King referred to is approximately 10%, somewhere between 8 and 10% at this time.
At this time, yes.
Thank you.
I wonder if we'd open up the 3rd county to it.
Any other discussion? I had a request for a break, so we're going to take just a 10-minute recess. We'll come back. All right, back in session. Currently, we do have an amendment on the floor, and the amendment is for Hardeman and Fayette to be opened to rifle, muzzleloader, and archery August 23rd, 24th, 25th hunt, and for muzzleloader to begin in all 8 of the CWD counties on October the 28th, and then gun season will open on November the 11th. So I'm still on discussion on that amendment, if anyone has any. Any discussion or any comment from the public? If not, we'll try a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Amendment carried. So now we are still on Proclamation 1903 as amended. And anybody else got any questions or comments? Commissioner Gardner.
Yes, sir. I would like to first off say that I agree with Chairman Holbert on the need for trying to get all these samples we can. I just encourage us to, examine the ability to try to capture all the samples or the bulk of the samples that we can in this early 3-day hunt. Having said that, I'd like to make a motion to change the 3-day season as amended back to all 8 counties to include muzzleloader and archery only, no gun.
All right. I got a motion by Gardner and a second by Granbery. The amendment on the floor is on the August 23rd, 24th, and 25th hunt, that instead of Fayette and Hardeman being rifle and the other 6 counties being archery only, the amendment is that it would include all 8 counties, and it would be muzzleloader and archery, both. Everything else stays the same. This is the only thing changing. Any discussion? Any comment from the public? All right. If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Aye. No. Motion carried. I got you. Motion carried. All right, I'm back on Proclamation 1903 as amended. Is there any other discussion, amendments? All right. All in favor of Proclamation 1903 as amended, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sanders, I'll call on you to recognize Tarkington.
This is kind of boring at this point. Sorry, Ken. Maybe we can find something to be a little controversial or something. I'd like to call Ken Tarkington up to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your, or on your iPad, or you can follow up above, I have a 3-page financial report, with the exception of the investments covering the month of, or through the month of March. At the top of the first page, the boating fund, through this point in time of the year, has approximately $2.7 million collected for boat registrations, which is about 5% less than what we received at the same point in time last year. The expenses approximate 39% of the allotment. The allotment is what you have approved each year, both in boating and wildlife, for us to spend for the various projects. In the middle of the page, the wildlife fund, in a similar manner, is approximately 5% less than the projection for this year through this point in time. And both of these accounts, April, May, and June, are relatively large income months. The expenses for the Wildlife Fund approximate 53% of the year. At the bottom of the page, the two endowments, or the Watchable Lifetime Endowment has approximately $6.6 million balance with availability of $15,008 that can be transferred for those programs that are conducted in the Wildlife Fund. And the Lifetime Sportsman account has a little over $53 million as a balance. At the top of the next page, the Wetlands Fund, the Wetlands Acquisition, where we purchased the wetlands properties, has approximately $12.7 million, and we've zeroed the maintenance fund out, as we usually do. The compensation, which is the in lieu of tax, has approximately $900,000 balance. We've yet to receive the in lieu of tax certifications from the comptroller through Stream, but expect them sometime maybe by the end of next week or early June. On the third page is the investment. This is through the month of April. For the month of April, the investment earned almost a third, or a little over 1/3%. And if you look at the bottom of the page, since the inception of November of 2015, it's earned 5.46%. Are there any questions or comments?
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to thank you for helping Jennifer yesterday with her spreadsheet. It was also very tiny print and difficult to read.
Yes, sir, we excel in that. I apologize. And if you'd like, I can, this is what I received from the Treasury. I thought it might be helpful to see what they actually present. I can try to extract some of that and enter it where you can.
No, sir, I've managed my way around it now.
Okay.
I've got you figured out. You change it up, it'll mess me all up again. I have to start over.
We can get you a magnifying glass.
I just thought it was funny when she presented hers. I was like, Tarkington helped out with that.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Sorry. All right.
I'm going to ask the same thing. Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chris Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. As most all of you are aware at this point, the first year of the 111th General Assembly has come to a close, and wanted to provide you all with a bit of an update on things that transpired this session, both legislation that passed, legislation that was not enacted into law. I would be remiss if I didn't start by kind of just giving you a little bit of an overview of what the workload looks like for what the agency does. During the 2019 session of the 111th General Assembly, there were over 3,000 bills that were filed. In order to keep track of anything that may affect the agency, someone or some team of people has to look at every one of those bills and find out what, if any, impact it might have. And I certainly don't do that by myself. I get to stand up here and give you the legislative updates, and it may seem as though I handle all that, but it would not be possible without the work of the legal division, both General Counsel Tracy Boyers, Attorney Thomas Moncrief, and in particular, Kim White, who's our assistant in there, who does a fantastic job of keeping me straight. I would also offer today that we all believed, much like Connie's birthday was yesterday, that today was Kim's birthday, when in reality I tried to tell Tracy that Kim's birthday was yesterday. Tracy didn't listen, but in any event, happy birthday, and the commission, please join me in wishing Kim a very happy belated birthday, as it was yesterday. Of those 3,000 bills, there were approximately, well, there were a number that have impact on the agency, but there were 15 that have a direct impact on either Title 69 or Title 70. Of those 15, there were 5 bills that were enacted into law. The first one I want to talk about is the tax on ammunition. There is historically in Tennessee been a statewide, a state tax on ammunition that has varied in cost, but most recently was 10 cents per box of ammunition or container of ammunition. And I'm sure many of you have seen the individual sticker that goes onto the box of ammunition. The agency was responsible for the administration of that tax and also received the proceeds from that. This year in the General Assembly, the members took up an initiative to repeal that tax. And of course, with repeal, we have less responsibility in the sense that we don't have to administer the tax, we don't have to print the stamps and mail the stamps and enforce that tax. But there was also the concern that we would lose the revenue associated with it, which varies from year to year, but on average, we receive approximately $435,000 of direct revenue from that ammunition tax. I am happy and very pleased to say and commend the General Assembly for their approach. They have repealed the tax. We no longer have that responsibility. The citizens of Tennessee no longer have to pay 10 cents per box in order to buy ammunition in the state of Tennessee. But most importantly, the General Assembly said that money is important to the state, that money is important to the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency. And so in the Appropriations Act, they funded the agency in the amount of $435,600 on a recurring basis. So we will receive that money this year and every year going forward until such time as the General Assembly might take an affirmative action to modify that. So very positive win-win for everyone. The next bill I want to talk about, we've been over, I think at the last meeting, there was some changes to our statute relative to the commercial paddlecraft industry. We still have regulatory authority over those. We are forming a advisory council now that it was created in statute, the Commercial Paddlecraft Advisory Council. I believe that law will go into effect July 1, so we're doing some preliminary work to get some membership associated with that so we can continue those conversations with our outfitters and continue our work to try to make the experience on all of our Tennessee waterways better for all users. There was another bill relative to our boating side of the shop. Last year, the General Assembly repealed an old exception to the boater education requirement. There was an exception that existed prior to last year that said if you were renting a motorized vessel, that you didn't necessarily have to complete our full boater education class, that you could satisfy those requirements by doing a daily orientation. After that bill passed, there was a significant amount of discussion between the agency and the marina owners who rent most of the boats in the state. And there was concern that the marina owners were going to lose business from those walk-up clients that maybe didn't have a boater certification and would be unable to rent the vessel if they had to take the full-blown class. We negotiated kind of a hybrid system now, and we have put back in place an exception for those walk-up customers and for those people that may not have completed our course, but we've provided a little more guidelines and sideboards as far as the exact training that they will have to provide those customers before they rent them a boat. So it was an agreed-upon negotiation between us and the Marina Owners Association. I think it will be better going forward. The boating division, Betsy Woods, Darren Ryder did a fantastic job of identifying rentalboatsafety.com, and there's a really nice online program that is going to satisfy those needs. So I want to talk a little bit about a couple of bills that didn't pass. As you all know, there was a bill associated with repealing or reversing y'all's decision relative to the use of natural-based urine and the chronic wasting disease concerns. What I'm most proud of is that the General Assembly recognized that this body is the body to consider those issues fully. And I'm proud of this body for taking that issue back up and making some changes recently to still adequately protect our state from chronic wasting disease concerns associated with natural urine and keeping those matters out of the General Assembly and subject to those much more varying political winds. So the other one, I've got to give a lot of credit to Mr. Clarence Dice, who I call the Tennessee Fur Harvesters lobbyist. There was a bill in the General Assembly this year that wanted to give regulatory authority over the placement of traps to local governments, which it doesn't take any of you long to realize that that would have really been a bizarre situation to have municipalities being able to say what can be trapped and when it can be trapped and how it can be trapped. And through some efforts by the Tennessee Fur Harvesters Association and the agency, we were able to convince our policymakers that your regulatory authority and regulating trapping on a statewide basis was the best path. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone has. I would also note that as far as you all are concerned and considering things that you may want us to work on as far as changing statutes or working towards passing legislation for the next General Assembly that will begin in January, it's never too early to get started. It's never too early to start to work on a plan for those things. So I would encourage you, if you have ideas or things that are in code that you would like me to work on, to consider changing, please get those to me as soon as you can. The working on them over the summer and getting ahead of it is a much better situation than trying to grab something in January and roll with it. So, with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Chris, would you elaborate on the raffles? I know you worked on
I
that.
can't believe I forgot that. There was another significant piece of legislation that passed. The raffle was a rousing success last year when we raffled one of our elk tags. And I think y'all are well aware we generated over $225,000 last year in raffling one elk tag. We went to the General Assembly this year and we said this is a wildly successful program, but Tennessee has a lot more to offer than just this one elk hunt. We have some other very unique opportunities that people would be very interested in doing and would probably pay more money to get an opportunity such as a President's Island hunt or a special duck hunt or a special turkey hunt in Tennessee. So we asked the General Assembly to give us the authority to issue 5 different tags. The elk tag being one of those if we decide to continue that. But we will have the authority starting next year to issue 5 tags that can be part of that raffle for any experience that we want to include. I would also offer you this piece of information, which Jennifer shared with me yesterday. Our elk raffle for this year has already exceeded the total collected for last year, with still some 60 days left to sell tags, I believe. So we are north of $250,000 collected at this point, and I feel very hopeful and confident that we may actually double our money over last year, still with the one elk tag. So I believe that this could be a $1 million deal by the time we get 5 tags. Jennifer continues to blow her magic dust on the marketing side of things. We continue to utilize our partners such as Connie King, Mid-South Shooters, and Bass Pro Shops, and some of those email lists. We've really generated a lot of interest, and we want to continue to try to make that program all it can be. So, sorry for leaving that out, and thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Well, when Director Carter came to us with the raffle idea, we all knew it was a good idea.
Ask a question.
Yes.
The ammo tax repeal going to effect?
Tracy, keep me honest, July 1, I believe. So
Can I get a refund on all my ammo?
there will be no refunds issued.
If you would like to be more, you could buy more as commemorative stamps. That might be you might should do that.
But in all seriousness, to Connie's point and to perhaps any other retailers, be mindful of that and realize if you have existing stamps that can carry you through to July 1, don't buy any more. If you need some more stamps right now, try to only buy what you think you're going to sell between now and July 1st. Because as of July 1st, there will no longer be a requirement.
We might could have a salamander raffle, since we're the salamander capital of the world.
No question. Salamander viewing opportunity.
Any other questions? Commissioner Ripley. Anybody else? Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner have anything else that needs to be brought up today? That they want to bring up today? Commissioner Sanders, you're recognized.
Well, thank you. I just want to remind everybody Monday is Memorial Day. I was actually born on traditional Memorial Day, and so having a grandfather that was shot at Iwo Jima and being born on Memorial Day, it always had a significance to me. So just being mindful of all the people that have served and paid the ultimate sacrifice.
Amen. Thank you for that, Commissioner Sanders. What? Two people waving at me. Chuck. Some reason I had a feeling when you come running through that door.
Yeah, I thought I'd check back in with you guys. Would you all mind if we looked at the calendar of Commissioner Ripley's amendment and the date changes?
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure you guys are aware of one piece of that.
Opens on a Monday. Right?
Yeah, that was it.
Move to amend it to open it, I guess we traditionally open on a
Saturday. I've got an alternative that I can share with you all, if that's okay.
Okay.
Just to be sure that we're on the same page. Let me get on the. So this was what the agency recommended, and then my understanding is that this version that you now see is what Commissioner Ripley had added, and what the commission took action on and passed, and so that would put the gun season in that area beginning on a Monday as opposed to a Saturday, which is traditional. So in thinking about that, I'm going to fast forward here a little bit to this. This is a modification of what he shared. I think it serves the same intent.
It does. I move that we adopt that. I simply had forgotten that we traditionally open everything on a Saturday, so I move to make that change.
One last point, though, excuse me, is this would put muzzleloader opening on a Monday, so that's the trade-off. If you
Well, muzzleloader's going to open on Monday because of the youth hunt, right?
Right.
it follows the youth
Right,
hunt, yes,
so
sir.
that's- Yeah, okay. So we're back on discussion of Proclamation 1903 as amended. Would anybody like to amend it?
I've made my motion to amend to have it open and close as reflected on the new calendar, so that the gun season now would open on the 9th, Saturday the 9th. Everything else to be the same.
Do I hear a second? All right, amendment is that we will change opening day of gun season in the CWD zone from November the 11th to November the 9th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carried.
Move to have Chuck sit down.
Commissioner McLerran?
I'll gladly do that.
For clarification, in the CWD zone, is the 3 dose a day, is that active on TWR, on public lands? Or is the 3 dose a day allowed on public lands or not?
In the CWD unit?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, the way that would work, the August hunt, there's no antlerless harvest, so that wouldn't happen. The rest of the seasons, up until the 5-day January hunt, you could harvest 3 does a day.
On public land?
The ones that are open with statewide seasons, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're back to Proclamation 1903 as amended. We're going to have to vote on that again. So, all in favor of 1903 as amended, let me know by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Director Carter, do you have something else? All right.
I'd like, I just wanted to bring up real quick to a couple of things that related to trapping. You were talking about what went on. California had a bill up that would have really changed a lot of things in their trapping and how trapping parts could be sold. That kind of all washed out and became okay. So that one worked out. New York City last week had the city council of New York City decided to ban all parts of any trapping. You couldn't sell, utilize, or anything else, any animal that was trapped, and to ban trapping in New York City. The Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies and a number of other people went there to testify, and none of them were allowed to testify. So Anyway, it's still pending, don't know where that's going, but just thought I'd tell you that the whole trapping thing is a moving target that keeps going all the time. There was a piece of good news, the marksmanship bill passed Congress, which gives us more leeway now in building trap and skeet fields or any kind of shooting ranges that lowers our match on the side that we have to put up to match our Pittman Robinson's money. And then, as I kind of mentioned last night, I can't say for sure, but it apparently looks like sometime the first week of June that the Recovering America's Wildlife Act will be introduced in Congress. So those are just things that are happening that will really affect our state, and just thought I'd mention those. I'll add whatever else everybody else has said on Memorial Day weekend. It's kind of the opening. If there is such a thing as a boating season, that's kind of the kickoff for boating in Tennessee, and there'll be a lot of our people on the water, and just wish everybody a safe and enjoyable weekend on the water and throughout the rest of this summer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director Carter. I've got one thing I'm going to bring up, or ask the agency to look into. That would be what I would ask, is that you guys look into it, the Wildlife Division, with the directors, and that's our duck blind drawings across the state on WMAs. It seems to be that, I live on the Tennessee River, or represent the Tennessee River County, so I probably hear more. I know Commissioner Box hears quite a bit from the Northwest counties, and then I know there's some. I think we got 14 statewide that includes some of Middle Tennessee also. But I believe, we hear a lot of complaints about blind selling, or there's not really a uniform system across the state, and it seems to me like if we could come up with a uniform system, try to do the same thing throughout the state at these WMAs, that would be a lot better. We already know it's illegal to sell a blind, so there shouldn't be anybody complain about that. I don't want to. I'm not asking for a computer draw. I don't really think we should take it away from these communities that are getting the benefit from these handheld draws. I would like to see that continue if that be possible. I know it's kind of a tradition in our area to go to Camden or Big Sandy to the duck blind drawing and spend the whole day down there and enjoy the day with a bunch of other hunters. So, but anyway, I'd just like to ask the agency to look into that, Director Carter, and just maybe if you get back with us in June and let us know. I know it's up to you guys to come up with the way the drawings are held. It's not us. So anyway, if you guys would look into that, I'd appreciate it. Yes.
Clarify, are you asking us to look at the way we draw all blinds, or just look at the procedures associated with the ones that are currently hand drawn? Because we have some blinds that are in part of a computer system that are different, they're smaller areas, but the way I understood your comments is looking at the procedures associated with those blinds that are currently part of a handheld draw.
Yes. I don't think we've got a problem with the computer drawings. Any other comments? Do I hear a motion we adjourn? Whoop, hold on just a second. Yes, sir.
Yesterday was really important to us, I think, from the lake situation, these small lakes and tournaments and those kind of things. I'd like for us to, excuse me, to address this thing pretty soon. And I don't know, Commissioner Box, what we need to do on that, but I think that needs to be looked at, especially with what's coming up with the summer and all the fishing and things. We need to get some information on that and discuss that. And to me, that's a pretty big priority for us as a commission to look into those kinds of complaints that we're getting. So.
Okay. Director Carter, if y'all could look into that, Frank, maybe give us some back in June and tell us what your thoughts are. Frank's smiling. He's like, more for me to do? I'm ready. I can tell. So anyway, anybody else? I would like to say that I'm proud of this commission. I know there's a lot of issues that we face that are really tough, and people don't realize it at home. But it's trying to find a balance. You come and you vote your convictions, and that's what I ask that's what I would ask each one of you to do. is vote your convictions and the way you feel you should vote to best represent your area or the state. And I just want to tell each one of you I'm proud of you and proud to serve with you. So do I hear a motion we adjourn? Hear a second? All in favor, stand up.